Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Tech Woke Podcast. I'm your host, Chris, a cybersecurity specialist inside the GovTech space. And in today's podcast, we have a great guest today. His name is Richard Tarity, and he's a founder, he's an advisor, he's a speaker, he's a best-selling author. He has books like The Intelligence Within. He's helped a lot of leaders create value, and he's been in business for 27 years. And without further ado, we're going to have him on. Richard, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be here.
Yeah. I'm glad that we were able to get connected and get on the podcast. As we talked behind the scenes, like you've been in a lot of things. You've created businesses. You have many businesses. They're doing very well, being from Philly and things like that. But can you explain to me your early life? How did you even get into this?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I had done a million jobs, Chris. I started working at a very young age, probably 12, 13. It was just anything I could get my hands on to try to figure out how to make money. I was working at third shift at a warehouse and realized after about a year and a half, it's really a dead end. And so I started to try to figure out after I got my associates, is there a way that I can break into sales? I had an uncle that was really kind of pushing me towards get into sales and really look at technology, because this was, the late 90s at the time. And so technology was really starting to boom. And he saw that as a really good area for a young person to get into. And so I finally broke through. I had a friend of mine refer me to a technology business that was doing a lot of voice and data, and ended up getting me hired there through a referral. And I got to tell you, it was brutal because, your salary was really, really tiny, and it was all really based on success. So you really had to bust your butt in order to really get going there. And so the only option to making money was to get out in the field and really start having conversations with people about how they adopt tech, how they assimilate the tech, what do they go through in a process to create projects internally, what does that look like? And so at a young age, I was able to really kind of dissect how people do that process, which really helped me excel in my sales career.
Yeah, and I understand. Even with me, I realized at a very young age, I was like, okay, well, I'm only getting $22 an hour. And no, actually, let me tell you, I was getting I think I was getting like $12.50. I don't know the exact amount. And then one year they gave me a raise. I'm thinking I'm about to get like an extra $4. They gave me 50 cents. I was like, 50 cents? I said, this is no way I'm gonna ever get money doing this, man. So I get where you're coming from, and then you realize this around 24 years old, which was really fast. And even to take the chance, because business is hard, that's amazing. I did have a question for you.
Yeah.
So with a lot of different businesses and companies, they spend millions on technologies for projects, and a lot of times they fail before they even launch.
Yeah.
Can you explain why does that happen? And from your experience, why does that even happen?
I think a lot of times it's right now we're in this instant gratification world, right? We have all this technology at our fingertips. We have research at our fingertips. When senior leaders within an organization tell the folks below them they want to move quickly and make decisions to accelerate an area that might be a problem for them right now, whether it's something that's not creating revenue, it's something that's supporting client churn, and they need to update it, they need to modernize it. There's a lot of pressure to make that decision. Historically, decisions have been generally made with the higher level executives and the decision makers within a business. But what we're finding is that also creates a ton of misalignment, right? Because we have a ton of people in our organizations out there. If we're a leader, we should be tapping into their intelligence and really learning about the friction points. Where are the tools and the platforms falling down? What are the customers not liking about the experience with us? They know what it is. And so to be able to bubble that up and be able to become part of that decision-making process, I think is key. But we do still see a lot of misalignment out there. And crazy enough, a lot of companies start to do the real discovery on the fly after they've already made the decision, because now they're on the hook to actually pay for the service or the product that they bought. And so it becomes an afterthought to do the real discovery, when up front they really could have curbed any of that just by doing a proper job up front.
No, I understand. And I agree. It's when you create these softwares, it's a lot of people in the hat, and a lot of people think they know what their customer wants, but what does the actual customer want? Or when it comes to building the software, like who needs to be on that? But can you explain a little bit about what is discovery? What does that mean?
Yeah, so like when we think about discovery, it's all about making sure that you've uncovered all of the things the organization needs, right? We see all too often companies are trying to go through a discovery process and they're speeding it up. And so they're missing a lot of things. They're missing departments and teams that should have a say, or should be at least able to give some opinions on where they're at, some of the things they're using. So we see a lot of that out there. But discovery is really, for the most part, it's about making solid decisions and not repeating or reprogramming what you have in an older platform. It's certainly important to preserve a lot of the features and functionality that exists out there with what you're using, but that's the starting point. The opportunity is you're now evolving. This is most likely years later, you're now making a new decision around a specific project. So while you've learned on the things that you desire and you've learned on the things that you really need and want, that should be the things that you focus on above and beyond, not just looking to repeat what you've done, right? And so there's this illusion of progress that goes on a lot of times where people think, oh, we've made a decision, we're making a lot of progress. And in reality, if you still aren't able to address the things that the organization needs and that the people need in order to successfully do their job, and to make sure that they keep those customers happy and protect that revenue and decrease churn, it's really just all for naught.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like you could do all the research you want, but if you're not actually finding what's connecting, like even for my business, I had to find out what people actually wanted by doing surveys, by doing polls, by sometimes even reaching out to the user. Like you got to know who to go to when you're doing the discovery phase. Is that correct?
That's 100% accurate. Yeah.
And also, too, you mentioned churn. Churn is when when a customer is leaving a platform or service. Is that? Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. So in that process, okay, how often are executives that are making technology decisions without involving actual people, who will have to use to manage the system? So what I'm saying is without.
Yep. I know. So Chris, it's hard to put an exact, percentage to it, but we're feeling like it's definitely north of 60%. So 6 out of every 10 companies we get in front of have talked to us about how they have not been able to properly align the resources and the teams internally in order to really drive the best results on the decisions they've made so far against other projects. We're talking to one really large retailer right now that's already gone through 2 different decisions for 2 different platforms in the last 3 years, and they're still not happy. The business is still not happy with the way the platform works. And a lot of times, if you talk to the VPs, it's because they say, well, we don't have proper requirements, but then why are you making decisions? Right? This is the pushback. And this goes out to everybody that's underneath the VP director level. You don't have to be a decision maker to add value. Your job in working at that organization is to add value. There's a proper way to push back on decision makers to make sure that they're aligning properly and gathering the right requirements. That's what they're paying you to do, is think, right? That's the kind of organizations that you want to work for. So we're still seeing a lot of organizations. I think part of it is because it's challenging. There's a lot of longevity to it. And do they really want to loop 20, 30, 40 people into a decision if it's going to be spread out and prolong it? The idea and the thought is with decision makers today is, man, it takes us a long time to get through decisions now, regardless of the vendor, regardless of the advisor. It could be 3 months, 6 months, 8 months before we get done. And that's just with going through maybe 5 to 10 people. If we start opening this up to a broader group of people, that's really going to slow the progress down. One of the reasons why we invented the platform that we invented is why we wrote the book around specifically the acceleration of decision-making. So the platform we invented is really helping to accelerate this into days and weeks, which used to take months and months for people to get through this process. So there is a new way to do this. We just have to educate the market on the fact that this does exist out there.
No, I understand. And mention your platform again. The software that you create.
It's called TrueCX. It's at www.truecx.net.
Okay. And what you and why you created this software is because you noticed, like for example, what are some of you noticed that there are some red flags that are presented when you're starting these projects, what you're doing. So what are some early signs that you notice that a project will fail based on what your background is?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of times, it takes too long to go live, right? You're promised that in the statement of work, we'll have you up and running in no time, right? A lot of times with sales, it's always, hey, we can have you up and running in a month. We can have you up and running in a month and a half. But because so much of the discovery happens once the implementation team meets the project team on the customer side, the supplier and the customer are now removed from the decision. The project managers sometimes aren't involved in any of that decision on the buyer side. And then on the supplier side, for the platform and the tool, it's the implementation team that rarely is ever involved in the conversations. So if there's not a good tribal knowledge handoff between the sales team and the engineering team that were on the account, and then the buyer side folks that made the decision, you will find that a lot of jobs have scope creep. Things start sneaking up. A lot of that discovery that should have been done is now getting done. So it's prolonging and delaying the go live date. That's a lot of the times what we see as red flags. And that's all post decision making. And so one of the things we want to do is make sure that we're helping companies get that right up front. And it will accelerate you through the process of adoption and transformation. And that's really what we're proving out.
No, I understand. Like with the implementation, with so many heads in the batch, people could just say they just want to add software or buy things or put things in place, which can slow down the whole process, especially with leadership, because leadership think they know what's going on, but the people that's actually implementing it, they actually know what's needed, and sometimes it can be a misdirection, right?
Yeah.
So it's sometimes like is software being bought that is not supposed to be used too, and that can save money, can it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, like you're talking about something we call in the book, the paradox of choice, right? So we talk a lot about like the paradox of choice is this well-known concept that we've worked on, which suggests that people crave a lot of options, right? That's one of the things they have. But with an overabundance of choices, it can lead to anxiety. It can lead to analysis paralysis, dissatisfaction. And so a lot of times when we see the wrong technology being chosen, that's kind of what we found out later on. They looked at too many things. They were confused. They didn't really understand overall requirements. There's a lot of those things that start to set in after the fact that lead to a lot of really bad decisioning. Okay. And right now, if you think about where we're at in technology, there's a ton of choices and a ton of options for people to look at and people to spend time on. So that's really the biggest challenge that we see right now is really just this paradox of choices. And so if you're really buttoned up on your requirements, you should be able to find the right suppliers ahead of time and then just be sharing with them what your requirements are. So you don't have to learn a lot about the discovery process by interviewing everybody. You basically have handled that because you've done the discovery up front. We have this AI report. It's really cool on the platform. And what it does is at the end, it analyzes all of the stuff that's going on, right? Which is really cool because it'll say, here's some of the companies and the platforms in the space that you might want to look at. So it's trying to create a match, we call it true match, to certain types of businesses based on categorically where you're at and where your real problems are and what the scoring comes back with. So it's really cool.
So can you kind of break down your software and break down how a proper collaboration should be done, especially when building different projects in enterprise software? Can you break that down?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you think about like from a technology management perspective, if a lot of the procurement folks and anybody sitting inside the organization they can sign up to use our platform. And what's going to happen is their organization starts to go through taking these surveys and taking these journeys around all different types of categories. We have hundreds of different categories around all different types of projects and platforms out there. They're going to see from the first hour after somebody starts going through the process exactly where the results are. They're going to start to see their top requirements. They're going to start to see what the overall scoring looks like. They're going to be able to see if people are rating things as high priorities or not. And so there's a requirements output that happens at the very end of this that they can quickly export out of the platform and then use that in the way of procurement, use it in an RFI, use it in an RFP. That speeds up that entire process for procurement and for the project management office.
Okay, that makes a lot of better sense. So you're basically starting at the beginning with discovery. You're working your way through the process by gathering information, and then you're putting it to and it's kind of dumping it to different. Is it like different stages of people?
It's dumping it into not stages necessarily, unless you wanted to stage the surveys and the journeys. But what it's doing is it's giving you the right output. So let's say that you and I and another 25 people are going through a process for a denial of service, really large entity, large government body, a lot of decision makers and people that have opinions on a denial of service and what's required specifically to handle that type of a project, or even a penetration test. If we launched one of those cybersecurity tracks into the organization and we had 25 people going through this process, we're going to know a lot about ourselves and what the overall consensus is from our teams. So even though you and I might be aligned on something being a high priority, if 23 other people don't view it as a high priority, then it's not a high priority. And so our platform allows for bottom-up approach, meaning the top executives aren't the only ones that are heard through that process and get what they want. It's bottom up as well. And so people that are in the weeds, people that are managing these platforms and these tools, people that are seeing how they have an impact to the business are also equally as important in this decision-making process as everybody else, because of the consensus building that we have. And then eventually you'll start looking at the charts and the insights that we drum up in the business intelligence, which helps the overall organization get a better decision than just going after a small subset of executives and their opinions specifically on that project.
Yeah, that saves a lot of money, and it saves a lot of time as having a group effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, especially because, like I said, it's just a decision making. Because, like, a lot of times I work in the field, a lot of program managers, project managers, they have to take the brunt of the blame. But really, I think it should be a collaborative blame. But I understand where the hierarchy is. Do you think the PM should be blamed in a lot of this, or the higher ups, or do you think it's just somebody just messed up?
I think it goes both ways. I think that there's a lot of good technology decisions that are made, and there's just really bad implementation. It could be the timing of the implementation. It could be that it drags on. It could be a lot of various reasons. It also goes the other way, where there's a bad technology decision in the project management. The implementation is fully buttoned up, but the tech itself doesn't measure up to the expectations of the organization, right? So it really does slice both ways. The whole idea is the more time you spend up front getting your needs and your priorities buttoned up, the less time it will be to pass blame around to either the project team or the implementation team or the decision team.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And another thing a lot of people ignore, I know a lot of people are building all these beautiful softwares and creating it, but a lot of times they forget about, and I know you mentioned it earlier about pen testing and cybersecurity, but can you emphasize how it can help cybersecurity teams help with working with the software teams to make sure that security is being put in place, because that's muchly important in this space also.
Yeah, so I mean, we built out a ton of security and cybersecurity tracks. One of the ones that's most useful for organizations is this readiness assessment that we've built. And you deploy it out to everyone in your organization that has an opinion around security and around threats and around denial of service and things like that. But we've dumbed it down to where you don't have to be a CISSP to go through this. You don't have to be a VP of security. You're just giving your opinion on what weighs the most and what's the heaviest of the priorities that you see. So it could be a function or a feature or a capability of that particular area. And you can go through and learn a lot about what these things are. You can learn about the wording that we use inside security and cybersecurity, zero trust factors, things like that. It's all out there inside. And then we have another 18 different specific tracks depending on what you're looking for. Is it cloud security? Is it edge security? Are we looking for network device security? So we've broken everything down in a way that makes it really granular. So you're really hyper focused on the requirements and the output for that particular thing. There are some general ones like readiness that give you an opportunity to say, hey, how ready is your company in all of these areas? But when it comes down to getting into specific projects, we go deeper and wider in those specific areas.
Yeah, and I think the GovTech space or government space needs your software, because a lot of the times we go through ATOs with the planning of ATOs, the planning of cloud compliance, just planning for pen tests, and a lot of times it seems unorganized.
Yeah,
because we don't have that, you know.
We just help bring clarity to that, right? So the big idea is bringing clarity. You'll see a lot about that in the book. You'll also see a lot about confidence. If a team has clarity on what they need and the vision for where they want to head, and they feel like they've really uncovered everything they need to make a project successful, then they have the confidence to go internally and ask for the project to be funded. But if they go through discovery and there's still misalignment and there's still some fogginess around, I'm not sure we've done the best job, I'm not sure we've uncovered all these rocks and turned them over, then you will see people delay. And so then that becomes a real problem, because hesitation right now in making decisions is the ultimate silent killer inside an organization.
Yeah, I agree. That's a bar. You can't be hesitant. You got to just go straight into implementation. So
you got to go right at it.
Yeah, you can't hesitate. You hesitate too long, you can lose a lot of money.
you can lose a lot of money, and the hackers are always further ahead in that sport.
Yeah, also too, so now that we brought up cybersecurity, also with AI, a lot of organizations are starting to implement AI or just put in different tools. I mean, have you used your software with bringing that in, or bringing AI in, or how would you use it?
Yeah, so we're using AI right now in a very slow rollout. What it's doing is it's basically doing summary reports. So when an organization gets done, it's reading all of the charts and the scoring around the category, the subcategories, and all of the justifications that were left by people in the way of comments back. Then what we're doing is we're basically putting together a phased approach strategy should they want to phase it, because maybe they can't spend all the money to get everything they want right away. We also then look at the different types of suppliers they should consider looking at, because ultimately we can help them get off go and say, hey, here's a few that you really should look at. And then the other thing we do is we break down all of the scoring, and we talk a little bit about what they could do to improve in all of those areas, because sometimes they're not in a position to make a decision right away, but there's still things they could be doing in the existing stack to make better decisions and to look at different ways to reorganize, reprogram, things like that. So the report is really more around summarization. It's a little bit around approach. It's a little bit about recommendation, a little bit about phasing. And people seem to really like that approach. Now, ultimately, what we're going to do is we're going to bring our agentic AI agent into the platform, and the AI will really start to generate lots of other things. We've talked about RFP builders. We've talked about things like, hey, connecting the customer's data sets using APIs so that they can bring information in. The AI can analyze it and then come back and say, here's what we think you should start doing more discovery around. So there's a lot of things we have desired on our AI roadmap, but we wanted to start with something, really knock it out of the park before we tried to do too much too fast.
I actually agree with that. That's a good way to do that, and have a slow rollout.
Yeah.
I did have another question. With all this going on, you have these tools, these project management tools, especially the things that you built. will you still need consulting companies? It's getting to the point where we could just use technology to kind of run our project management and run a lot of these different stuff instead of going to consultants. What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so traditional consulting, I don't think is 100% at a loss with AI. I think that it comes down to what is the knowledge base that you have, right? What is the experience that you have? AI hasn't lived through the downfalls and the upfalls of projects. It hasn't been hit in the face with all the things that happen in a normal course of making decisions. It hasn't been inside the data rooms and the data centers to really understand what's going on inside the organization. In my opinion, all we're trying to do really with our platform, and a lot of consulting companies are now using it and white labeling it. So they're using it as their own and putting their logo in there and putting a lot of other customizable, brandable things inside the platform and just doing more with their customers because it's speeding up the process. So it allows the consultant to go faster inside their accounts and go faster with net new prospects that they're trying to bring on. It also creates a massive differentiator for them against traditional consulting. Because even though they have a traditional consulting model, they can also bring this in as a force multiplier. So we're seeing them winning deals against even larger consultancies that are out there, because when they get done demoing our platform to customers, they're coming back and saying, man, Deloitte couldn't do that. Accenture couldn't do that. They didn't show me anything like that. And so we've got boutique firms using our platform that are beating these types of companies now. So I think it's less about the AI and it's more about the approach and the intelligence behind how are you adding more value to your customers? What are you doing to be a value creator? As long as you're doing that, I don't think any approach is really in jeopardy, because customers still need advice, whether the way of automation, the way of analog, right? One-on-one. They still have to have really smart people around them in order to continually be exceeding their goals and the things they need to be doing.
And that's a good perspective. You saying it's not going away, but you're just using it as a tool. And matter of fact, you could probably outwork a lot of these big companies just by using the tool.
So we beat Deloitte in a head-to-head match in an account that signed up for our platform. Just full disclosure, it was about mid $30,000 for a year of a subscription on our platform. Use it for as much of the discovery as you want it to go through, with as many projects and ongoing. Or you could go spend $250,000 with Deloitte over 6 months. They're never going to break it down to the level that we're breaking it down. And so it's just a different way of thinking about how to get this particular piece done, which is the discovery, right? How do we accelerate that discovery? Now, the thing that we're trying to do with the platform is create economic energy in an area where there isn't any today. People don't have to have our platform in order to do consulting. But my contention is, if they're not using something like this down the road, it's just going to take them too long. And we know, we've talked about speed. Speed is the new currency in this world. Speed is the new currency, but you can't jeopardize the output for speed. So if you can give much better output, give them clarity, give them confidence, and accelerate them through a process, you will win more of the deals than you will lose in this economy. And that's really what we're trying to prove, is that we're speeding up a mundane process that isn't really great for the consultant. It's not really great for the customer to go through. So if both are in agreement that we should speed up that mundane process, but then get this amazing output even days later that we couldn't get in 3 to 4 months doing it in analog, doing it one-on-one, scheduling meetings, then I think we've got ourselves a really big opportunity in the market.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. It's about currency and speed. A lot of people want things done sometimes in a day.
Yes,
if they can.
The turnarounds are very, very fast. But again, customers have to understand, I think they do by and large, you cannot jeopardize and use speed and then miss out on a lot of things when you're spending your company's money, because that will get you fired. And it still continues today to get people fired. So I think that's sometimes why people hesitate, and we're just helping them through the hesitation, using a platform that was built to go speed, but also go really deep and wide.
I agree. For tech professionals listening, What lessons should they take from watching so many projects from you watching so many projects fail?
Yeah, the biggest thing, it's kind of cliche, but we hear it all the time is, take two steps back, take five steps forward, slow down, right? To speed up. There's a reason this continues to get repeated over and over again all over, right? It's true. If you just slow down up front, you can accelerate and speed up as you continue to go through. The other thing is, ask better questions and get better answers.
Yeah, that's a good
That's
one.
something I've been told by my success coach. I've been working with this guy for over 27 years. He's been my success coach. We became great friends, and he still tells me to this day, same advice: ask better questions, get better answers. That will always lead to better outcomes, right? That's the people that ask the best questions, generally the ones that win the most deals. Customers appreciate that. It gets back to, how are you adding value and becoming a value creator back into your customer accounts?
That's a good bar. You said I learned that in my tech career. You sometimes just ask just questions,
Yeah,
but when you ask those questions that they can't really answer right then and there, that's how you know it's a good question.
exactly. And they appreciate it, and then they value you. You're on the same level of playing field with the customer, right? You get a vote as well. You're not there to have to do everything they ask you to do. You have a vote. You could say no and walk away from certain things. It's one of the things I've always studied is, if I'm really adding value and I'm busting my butt to help you, then I need to be appreciated in the deal. My opinions need to matter to you. And if my opinions don't matter to you, then I'm going to end up firing you. You don't hold all the cards just because you're the customer. There's a lot of intellectual property that us consultants carry around that people need.
Yeah.
And so the only way to unlock the value sitting inside our heads is to do it with respect and make sure that we are valued. Otherwise, that person's not worthy of being consulted for, right? And so it's just something I would tell tech entrepreneurs. You get a vote as well. You don't have to thank anybody for showing up to a meeting, because they could also equally thank you. You're on equal playing field, so don't ever forget that.
Okay. That's some good advice. And this is a question I have for you. You built so many successful businesses from what we see. What's something that people misunderstand about building tech versus just working in tech?
Yeah, I mean, generating revenue, right? That's a gift. I have so many friends, so many colleagues over the years that have watched us build consulting firms and go, "Oh my God, it's so easy." And I said, "What's easy about it?" And they say, well, they see the aftermath, they see the success, they see the decisions, they see how you guided somebody through, and they see you making money, and they're like, "Oh, it just seems like it's easy," right? It's not easy. Getting a customer, a paying customer, a single paying customer, is the hardest thing you will ever do in your life. And it's taking some of the best consultants I've seen that have gone out on their own upwards of 9 and 10 and 12 months before they even see $1 of any type of referral revenue or hourly billing or consulting revenue going through. So it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge to get paying customers. Again, they have to value you. They have to value what you do. And so I think a lot of people should really focus on, if you think it's easy to get revenue, you're probably not going to be very successful. You really need to spend some time early on figuring out what your go-to-market is. You got to leverage your food chain and your network on a regular basis, right? You got to be making calls. You got to be hustling. You got to be sending out emails. It's a combination of everything these days, because the channels are lighting up across all streams of communication. Decision makers aren't sitting around waiting to get direct messages on LinkedIn and answering emails and stuff. They're not doing that. They're going out and doing their own research. They're asking other valuable consultants who they like and trust, "Hey, do you know anyone in the security space? Do you know anyone that's helped a company like ours go through an ERP migration?" That's the stuff they're asking. They're leveraging their food chain and their network. So you got to be doing the exact same thing. And that requires a ton of work.
I agree with you 100% on that. When I first tried to get into consulting, I consult on risk management in the government, teach, all that stuff. So the biggest thing that I had to learn was how to actually get somebody to pay me. So I had to first create the value by posting. And then after that created that value, I tested the market. Somebody bought it. And then after that, that's when I was able to make sales. So you got it. And I can agree with you, Richard. It takes a lot of work to get somebody to buy one thing from you.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a lot of effort. So I agree. Just
It
working
is.
in tech, you're working in tech. You're just doing it. You're not actually making the money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, posting things about technology and stuff like that is not going to land you any type of significant account. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Posting relevant data and content that's intelligent and valuable to customers will land you some appointments. Still not going to be a cakewalk. You've got to really get out there. My biggest thing now in this day and age, what I think we've come back to is getting out to the right type of events, getting out to the right type of networking groups and things like that, right? Getting in front of people live, one-on-one, shaking hands, learning more about them, right? Getting them to talk about themselves and what they do and how they do it. To me, that's the real value right now. We're back to that, right? Email is almost dead. Outreach is almost dead. I mean, I probably deflect on average 15 to 20 new SDR, BDR requests to LinkedIn on a daily basis. Because the first time, as soon as I hit accept, the first thing they do is tell me all about them and what they can do for me. And they don't even know me yet. There's no trust. There's no relationship yet. So when you're live face to face, whether it be an event, an industry conference, a trade show, you're attending, you're sponsoring, you're exhibiting, I don't care what it is. You're at another business owner's meeting, whether it's Vistage, whether it's YPO, whether it's other events happening, meetups inside your city and playground where you hang out. That's where it's at. Because if people get a good sense for who you are and start to build trust with you, they will inevitably find ways to work with you. And to me, that's where we should all really be spending our time and energy right now.
Okay, that's a good to know, because I thought everything was online, but hey, I'm about to start going to the right events and talking to different people. I'm gonna take that for myself.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea for you, Chris.
Yeah, I have another question. How do you think enterprise technology buying and decision making will change over the next 3 to 5 years? You kind of mentioned it, building a relationship with people, but is there anything else you would like to put into that?
You know, I think it's going to come down. There's going to be a lot of AI integrated into helping drive use cases for where to apply tech decisioning, right? So when I say that, I mean, you know, customers have to get better at understanding all of the pain points. Technology is a component of that and can be, but they also have to just understand in general, where are customers most frustrated in dealing with them? Is it on a web chat? Is it going into the IVR up front on the support call? Is it the inbound emails that are coming in to manage all the cases and all the different open tickets and things like that? Is it, you know, the account management team? I think we have to start helping companies figure out where they can do that. We're looking at expanding our platform into that area where we could connect into their structured data, look at it, and really come back to them with, here's your areas of opportunity. Here's the areas you're doing great. Here's where your biggest risks are. And it's not just always technology. It's other things as well. Could be people, could be process and workflows and things, right? It's always people, process, technology. But I think that where we're headed, the AI is really going to play a major role in giving us insights into these areas and helping us continue to really create the use cases we need for where we need to adopt different types of technology.
Yeah, that's how I see it going too. If you can use AI to really figure that out and connect in, your software will be on a whole different level.
Yep, I agree.
And this is probably like one of the last questions I'm gonna ask. I know we kind of talked about some of the buy-in from people doing the real work. Why do companies struggle so much from collaboration when making major tech decisions? What's your main pain point on that? I know you mentioned several.
Yeah, so advice to give a company, and then maybe some advice to give tech professionals around that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to companies, I would say the biggest thing is they've got to find ways to make decisions faster, because C-level executives don't have the patience and the time to sit around and wait while the organization catches up to the bouncing ball and the changes. The organization, the levels below that C level, the EVPs, the VPs, directors have to start figuring out ways to accelerate through decision-making when it comes to tech, all decisioning, right? Doesn't matter what it is. That's really their new currency. If they're not doing it, they will be replaced with potentially AI or potentially other folks that just operate at a higher speed. That's the one piece of advice I would give to those folks. We've seen people get fired for just taking too long. And so the biggest advice that I would give probably to like the young tech professionals and just tech professionals in general is you've got to figure out how to tie your success to that customer's success, that individual decision maker's success that you're now working with. You've got to first make them successful in order to get then the pass through of the success coming back down to you, right? You got to help them, put them in a position so they get the budget, they get the yes, they're able to convince their organization to make a decision. So then you ultimately see that success as well in the way of your commissions, in the way of the money that will transpire between you and them. And you have to be a constant value creator. I preach about it all the time. It's on my LinkedIn handle. If you're not looking at being a value creator for your customers, for your network, I think you're probably going to struggle against the people that are really paying attention to that. You're going to fall behind in a big way.
Yeah, Richard, you've been saying nothing but bars. I pray that people that are listening, they take that information and use it. Those are two biggest things we're moving into a different society, and you got to create value. And hey, if they're successful, you're successful.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all the questions I have. Richard, where can they find you?
So you can find me at TrueCX, TRUCX.net. You could find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Amazon. So we'll make sure we get the link out, Chris, to everybody. But we have an Audible for The Intelligence Within. This is the hardback version of the book, but it's also available on Audible, softback. And so you can get this in Kindle version as well. So we'll make sure we get you all the links. So if anybody wants to go out there and listen, everybody wants to read, you'll really understand the approach that we're taking and how we're trying to accelerate all tech professionals, regardless of experience, right? We've got people using the platform that are only 2 to 3 years in on this, and it's bringing them up to a level where they can compete with Deloitte. A managing partner that has 25 years, they're able to compete with them because of this force multiplier that they're able to bring in to really help the customer accelerate through. So I would say give it a read, give it a good look, and then if you have anything you want to reach out to me, you can get to me through LinkedIn, you can get to me through the website.
Yeah, make sure all y'all check out Intelligent Within. Throughout this podcast, Richard has brought down a lot of information that you can understand. And then also, too, if people want to check out his software, just check it out. It will help elevate you. And Richard, can you say the name of your software one more time?
Yeah, it's TrueCX, TRUCX.net.
Okay, make sure you check it out because that can help you or your company, especially when it comes to project management. As a person that works in tech myself, it could be hard to manage your projects. We use software like I'm not going to name anyone particularly, but some software that we use is very hard to use. It's hard for people to understand. But make sure you check out Richard and TrueCX and check out that software. And then one more thing, Richard. Is there one quote, one sentence you want to leave the audience with before we end it? Something that can help them, in the future? Just one sentence, a quote. It could be anything, a statement.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I always say is ask better questions, get better answers. That's still the thing that hits me every day. I carry it with me all the time. Every time I go back to that, if it's personal, professional, it's a game changer, right? It's within your community, it's with your family, it's with your customers, your prospects. To me, it's always about just its value. Right? How am I adding value to your life? How am I adding value to decisions? How am I adding value it also comes back to, right? So it's a two-way street, but that's really the one thing I would say. And always, always, always be focused on creating the value. Become a value multiplier, value creator That is the thing customers want. I've asked so many CIOs over the 2 years we were developing the software. So many still shape the product, give us feedback, friends, former customers, all of the above. And the one thing that came crystal clear from them is that they have to find and surround themselves with consultants that are adding value, that know their business, that also know the technology they're representing. And they need to have those people adding value. They cannot deal with generalists. There's not enough time for generalists anymore. So even if you have to pick a single highway to go on, and you don't feel like you can do data center representation and co-location and cybersecurity and contact center, that's fine. Pick a lane, stick to the lane, become an expert in that, and then figure out what your off ramps are later on. But stay down that highway, because CIOs and C-levels are expecting you to be smart, be bright, and be gone. And they're willing to pay for it. So that's the one thing I would tell people.
Yeah, make sure you, and to the audience, I'm gonna take that for myself. Make sure you take that advice. Always create value and ask better questions, get better answers. If you're always asking the same question and it's not getting you anywhere, just ask a different question that actually gets you to think, and can get you where you really need to go. So thank you, Richard, for coming on the podcast, and thank you for giving me this time throughout your day to come on.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me. Thanks for asking. It was a lot of fun. Happy to see where it goes.
I can't wait to go try to get it out as soon as possible. Just to close it out, remember, everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below if you had anything different you want to say, had any different opinions. Also, check out rmfacademy.io if you want to learn about risk management. And remember, everybody, get 1% better every day. Peace out. I'll see you on the next one.